What's up, everybody? How you doing? My name is Donal. Welcome to the very first Thunkable live Hangout on Air. We're going to do some live coding. So I'm going to introduce you to the Thunkable X platform, show you what it's all about. We're going to go through the steps from designing an app to coding it, doing some blocks, testing it out on our phones, and then we're going to go back and repeat the process again. So improve our design. We're going to improve our blocks, make them a little bit more efficient, and we're going to test it out. We're going to be live testing all the way. So we've got a couple of things just to get sorted before we get started. We've got a chat going at the moment as well, so hopefully you can see me in the live chat. I can see I've put up a little message there. So if you have any questions, it doesn't necessarily have to be related to this tutorial, to this to the blocks that you're seeing, or to the components that I'm using. If you've got any questions at all about using Thunkable, about what's going on, what we're working on, please feel free to put them in the chat. We'll do our best to get to them live during the show, during the Hangout. And if we can answer them, then that would be brilliant. And if we don't, we'll try and go through the questions, or maybe do like a follow-up. So there's a post within the Thunkable community, and what we can do there is we can highlight some of the best questions that we get live on air. So maybe that's a good place to start. So over here in the Thunkable community, what I want to do first of all is share my screen with you. I think this should do the job right here. So let's start with the Thunkable community. Hopefully there it wasn't too confusing. So over here in the Thunkable community, if you're looking to learn about Thunkable, this is one of the best places you can connect with other people who are using it. We can go in here and we can take a look at all the discussion that's going, the questions that people have at the moment. When you've completed your app, we've got a section here for apps that have been successfully thunked, and you can share. This is basically like a free place to promote your app. So we've got about 40,000 users or so on the community. You can see that there's lots of users active right now, and you can post questions, you can create new topics, you can ask questions here on existing topics. So I'd encourage you to join in the community here, join the discussion, and to learn about using Thunkable. So if you want to follow along at home, you're probably going to need this Thunkable Live app. If you go to the Play Store, if you're using Android, or you can go to the App Store as well on your iOS device, you can download the Thunkable Live app. So I might go back a level here, because when you search for Thunkable, it brings up a couple of different results. Obviously, lots of people have built apps with Thunkable, apps about Thunkable, but this is the one that we want here. It's called Thunkable Live. So when you find that app, this is what it'll look like as well on your phone, and that's the one that you want to install. So I've got that installed here on my phone beside me, and we'll do some previews as we're going along as well. So the idea for the app that we have today comes from a post that we got in the community, and it's a question that comes up every now and again. We're going to build a kind of a carousel app, or an image slider app, where we're going to have a few different pictures displaying, and we're going to be able to move back and forth through them, and hopefully eventually we'll build it up into creating a full loop of images that we can scroll through continuously. So what you're going to want to do is head on over to x.thunkable.com. You can use any Google address or any G Suite address. So this could be school, it could be work, and it could be any Gmail address as well. That'll allow you to log in. This is a totally free account to use as well. And I'm going to create a new one here by clicking Create New App. By default, with the free account, everything that you create will be a public project. The benefit of this then is that it gets included in the Thunkable community and the Thunkable gallery as well. So what I'm going to do is call this images, let's say, or carousel or something like that. And we are going to take a look here at the first screen that greets us. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. Let me take a quick look at the chat before I do. We have nothing in the chat just yet, but feel free to put in your questions into the chat, and we'll get to them then as we go through it. So let's have a look quickly at the designer here. This is the first page that you see, and this is what allows you to mock up or to lay out your app. You can see you've got visible components here, user interface components, a button for the user to click on, label to display some text to the user. You've got a text input here where users can type in the information that they want. And we want to have a kind of a carousel of images that are going to be displayed or going to scroll around. So what I want to do is scroll down here. We've got a layout here, so we can change how things are positioned on the screen, or we can change how the screens themselves are ordered with these layout components. And we've got different components here for working with the voice, so creating sounds, text to speech, and there's lots of different things that you could create with these. So if you have an idea for an app yourself that you'd like to make, throw it into the chat as well, or post it into the community. And what we can do then is we can have a look and see what the most popular requests are, and maybe we can do that as the topic for next week's Hangout. For today, we're going to just use images and buttons. And when you're developing your app, or when you're coming up with your idea for an app, I'd recommend building it up step by step. So starting with something as simple as possible, and then expanding from there. So imagine now that I've never used this image component. I can see that it's on my screen here. Maybe I want to change the name of this image. So I can call this my image, image 1, something like that. So let's call it my image. And you can rename it by clicking on the little pencil here. Let's imagine then that in my haste to get things built, I went and I put in an animation onto the screen by accident. There is just this little bin or this little trash can here that we can click to delete a component. So pretty much everything that you do can be undone, so there's no need to worry about making a mess of things when you're developing. Okay, so our image then, each component that we add here, once we add it into our app, what we want to do is customize it then. So we can do that with the properties. At the moment, this is just kind of a placeholder image, and you can see that there's no picture source. So I've picked a few different images of San Francisco that we're going to put in today, and you can use any images that you like. So if I wanted to include an image, I could upload one from my computer. So if you've got some photos that you've taken on your phone, if you've got some animations that you've created yourself, you can upload them directly to Thunkable through this upload dialog, or you also have the option of adding in your own URL. So this is what I've done today. I've got a couple of examples. I think I'm going to start with this one here. So we've got a picture of Lombard Street. It points exactly to the image. So that's maybe an important thing if you haven't done this before. So it's .jpeg or .png, something like that. And I'm going to copy that link. And then if I paste it into Thunkable over here, if I paste in here, you'll see that the image appears on the screen. Now, the first time we see it, it appears a little bit different. It's much, much smaller than it was on the screen, and that's because the next two properties, the height and the width, need to be changed. So these are the pixel values maybe on the screen. So maybe we'll make that a bit bigger. Let's set it to say 200. Oh, we can see that it changes the height in real time like that, so that's quite useful. What about if we're not sure then how high the screen is going to be? Well, we can set it to be fit contents, or we could set it to be something like fill the container. In this case, the container for this image is screen 1, so that means it's going to be as tall as the screen, and it's getting a little bit stretched here. So if we set the width of this one to be fill container as well, you can see that it's spread out or stretched out across the screen. Now this kind of mock-up here that we see isn't the same resolution, or it isn't the same pixel density that you might have on your own phone or your own device. So the best thing that you should do is test this out live on your own app. So I'm going to click on live test here, and hopefully if you've installed, if we go back to the Thunkable Live app here, if you've installed this on your phone, you'll be able to live test as well. So I'll do a quick demo. All we're going to see is just a picture on my phone, but let's live test here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment. We'll go back into Google Hangouts. So here I am again, and hopefully you can see what's happening here on my phone. We've got my phone here. I'm going to open up the Thunkable Live app. I got to shake it to get rid of the app I was testing the last time. And on my screen then, what it says is the images app here appears on screen. And if I open it up, what will happen then is the preview that's on my phone gets sent directly to my phone like this. The preview that's on my on the website, on the web viewer, like that. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, and you can see because this is higher resolution, higher image density, let's say on the device, you're able to see a lot more of the image. So let's start sharing the screen again, and we'll go back to Thunkable and continue on here like this. All right. So first of all, what we're going to do is add in a button that allows us to go to the next screen to navigate between our images. Let's take a look here like that. We can find a button here and we can place it underneath our image. So it's a little bit big for the screen for the moment. What I'm going to do is, just while we're working, I'm going to change the height to be, let's set it to be 90%. The screen height here. And we can change that back then later on. But in the button here, we can say anything we like. So we've got another set of properties. Because this is a separate component, we've got another set of properties over here. And we can do something like next, or next image, or whatever you want, next image, let's say. And this will allow us to move to the next picture. Let's start with introducing a little bit of logic, first of all, and getting it to go from one picture to the next. So what happens when the button is pressed? So we're going to open up our blocks here. This allows us to add code or add functionality to our design. In here, we can do things like maths and logic. We can create functions and variables as well that can do all sorts of interesting things inside of our app. But what we want here is to work with the components that we've added. So we had screen 1 when we opened up our app. We've added in my image. That's the one that we renamed. And button 1 then is the component that we added in ourselves. So we open up button 1. These are all the little blocks. They're a little bit like puzzle pieces or jigsaw pieces that you can just click together, snap together to build your own app. So for example here, when button 1 is clicked, let's zoom in a little bit here just to make it slightly easier to see. What we're going to do is change that image. So this would be the simplest sort of test that we can do. We want to change the image or the picture property. So if we go back here to our designer for a second, what do we want to change? So on the image, there's a property called picture. That's what I want to change in my blocks. So in my image here, we want to set the picture property down here. Okay, so we don't have any images uploaded or anything like that. We're using these URLs, so we need to type in a piece of text like this. So again, you could have images uploaded, but in this case, we'll pick another one here. Here's a nice image of the Golden Gate. Let's just get rid of all of this stuff here at the end. No, that's fine. We'll keep all that. And let's copy this, and we'll only be able to see, of course, when it's a phone in portrait mode. We're only going to be able to see a small section of this, but let's just paste that in there and see how we get on. So this is going to start off with our picture of Lombard Street, and it's going to change over then to the Golden Gate. Should be live testing as well. So if you want to test this out on your phone, make sure you might need to reset the app or something like that. But let's go back here to our Hangouts on air. Shouldn't be screen sharing anymore. Oh, hang on a second. Let's stop screen sharing. There we go. Okay, so this was our image of the screen. A little bit hard to see. You might need to turn down the brightness, but hopefully you'll be able to see then that when we find that button, click on the button there, changes to our Golden Gate. Okay, we definitely need turn down the brightness here a bit or something. Let's see, something like that. Too dark. That's not too bad. Okay. Okay, so now we've gone from one picture to another picture. That's not quite a carousel. We're not going around in a circle or around in a loop or anything like that. So we'd like to be able to go back. That's how do we go from the first image to the second, and then from the second back to the first. So we're going to introduce a tiny little bit of logic to do that. Let's start sharing again and open up Thunkable here. So we'll check if it's showing the Golden Gate. We'll go back to Lombard Street, and if it's showing Lombard Street, we'll go back to the Golden Gate. So to do something like that, we need these control blocks here. So we're going to do a quick check up here, and we've got two different conditions that we're looking for. So in this case, we can do it with if and else, because if it's not the first one, then it must be the second one, let's say. Okay. So we want to do a comparison. We could use this block if we wanted, or maybe we could check if two pieces of text were the same. Let's just use this one for the moment. It should be a little bit easier, I think. So we want to see if two things are the same. We want to see if the current picture, that's this one here, the current picture, like that, is this one is the Golden Gate. that is the Golden Gate, what we're going to do is set it to be, let's change it here, the picture of Lombard Street. So we'll use a piece of text like that. Let me find the image. I'm going to have to copy that address again. So this is the one I was using earlier. Let's use that one here, and let's paste that in here. So if it's a Golden Gate, change it to Lombard Street. Otherwise, change it to the Golden Gate. Best way to kind of see that in action is to change it back for ourselves. So let's go back to the camera. Let's turn up the brightness here just a little bit. Okay, so I've got Lombard Street, find that button there, change it to the Golden Gate. If it's the Golden Gate, go back to Lombard Street. So now, I mean, it kind of demonstrates the behavior of a carousel because we're scrolling around in a loop of 2. But what we might like to do instead is create some sort of a list of different images here. So that's the last little thing that we want to think about, is how can we create 2 or 3 things in a list. How can we go around in a loop? So show the first image, then the second image, then the third image. When we get to the end, because it's kind of supposed to be a loop or a carousel, we go back to the first image. So to do that, we're going to add in some lists to our app. Let's back over here to our app, and let's create a list then of our different images. So we have an option here to make a list like this. We can put anything you want into it. It can be numbers, it can be letters if you want, and of course it could be links to images that are on the internet. So let's get started here. Let's create a local variable here, and let's call this, we can call it name. That's not particularly descriptive. So let's call it list of images. So we're going to use this make a list block over here. And our first image can be that picture. I think that was Lombard Street, I think. If you have a block, by the way, that you want to delete, you can drag and drop it into this little trash can down here. And there's another one. Get rid of those ones. We don't even need this one, so let's get rid of that. Let me double check what the URLs are here. So this is, yep, Lombard. This one will be the Golden Gate. And I have one more here, which is just a view of the city itself. So let's go back over here and replace this piece of text like so. Okay, so what we want to do is show this image, then this one, and then the third one. And when the user clicks the button again, we want to go back to the first image like that. So we need some way of keeping track of which image we are showing. Every time we click on the button, we want to show the next image. So we show the first one, and then the second one, and then the third one. Let's do that bit first. That's the easy bit, okay? So we want some method of keeping track of where we are in this list. So let's create a variable here, and we'll call it image index maybe. And we will start at number 1. So every time we click the button, or when the user clicks the button, we want it to go to the next number. Now, often what people do here is that they'll set this image index. I suppose the intuitive kind of thing, if you've never done any of this before, would be to put in the number 2 here, because the first thing you have is 1, and then when you click it, you go to 2. That would mean then that we show the first image, and then when we click the button, it'll change to the second one. If we go index 2, it'll look at the second index in our list, which is, again, still the same image. And what we want to do here is, rather than set it to 2, we want it to be 1 more than the previous number. So let's just put this in here, and let's just try it out for ourselves. So let's do the image index plus 1. So why do we choose the name index? So we want to use the item here. So we want to find from our list of images. Let's go into variables and get it here. Let's go to our list of images, like so. And we want to get the app index. So I could go over here and I could get image index like this, or I can duplicate the blocks like that. So just by right-clicking on a block, like so. What you can do is duplicate it and reuse it. So first of all, we'll show image number 1. Then we go 1 plus 1, and we set this variable to be 2. That grabs this one. Then we click it again. 2 plus 1 will give us 3. And then 3 plus 1 is going to give us 4. We don't have a fourth image, but the nice thing about this is that we can try it out. Having the ability to live test it means we can see what happens. If the app crashes, we can always reset it. So it's not a big deal. So in our list of images, get the image index. Brilliant. That'll do for now. So let's go back to the live testing, and let's have a look at what this looks like on our phone. Okay, so in our live testing app, you can hopefully see it there. Image number 2. Image number 2. So let's go back and have a quick look at what's going on and where we made our mistake. So I'll make sure they're not the same. That's probably one of the most common ones. Image index plus 1. Cisco, and what I'm going to do is just maybe do a quick reset here, just in case. So it seems like it should be working the way I want it to work, but going to just do a quick reset of this app. Bear with me for a second. Index plus 1. Get item number 1. Yeah, I think this is all good so far. So let's try that out. Okay, so now we've started up again, and these images should be loaded in as our variables. Okay, what I might do is just a little bit of debugging here, just to make sure that our image index is incrementing the way we want it to. So let's display the number here on the button here. So let's have a look at image index and see what it's showing. So, oh, cool. Okay, so for some reason now it's magically decided to work. Okay, let's get rid of that for a second. Okay. Okay. Now what I can do is preview that there. I think it just took a minute to upload this image to the live testing. So that's definitely, again, another tip for when you're trying these things out, is to reset it, turn it off, turn it up, turn it back on again. Would be the way to do it. Okay, so we have everything was working there. You won't be able to see the debugging thing either. So that's the second image, and that's the third image. Yeah, hopefully it looks quite different. And then we run out of images. So that's the final thing then that we want to do, is try and figure out, well, what happens then when we get to the end of the list here, like that. So let me share my screen with you again. And what I want to do here is, so what happens here when this index gets to 4 and we don't have 4 images to display. So let's just do it the easiest way first and do a quick test. So we want to see, is this index greater than 3? So to check whether something is greater than or less than, we go in here to our comparisons, our inequalities. Let's see if it's greater than 3. So if greater than 3, that if the app index, like that, and again we can use this right click and duplicate, and if that one is greater than, we're going to hard code that in as being the number 3. Then what we'll do is we'll set the index itself back to 1, and we can take a look at that in action, and we can see how that works out. So 1, 2, 3. What about 4? 4 would be bigger than 3. Set it back to 1, and then get image number 1. So this will go 1, 2, 3. Then go back to the beginning, 1, 2, 3, and we've created a little loop for ourselves like this. So that'll work. It's not necessarily the best way of doing it, but we can test this out and we can see what it looks like on our app. So let's jump back into the Hangouts again. And over here on the device, this time now, rather than getting a blank screen, that's image number 2. This is image number 3. And now we've gone back to image 1. So we can create this little cycle, this little loop, this little carousel. Every time that we're clicking this, it's sending off another request. So that's kind of little flashes there as it's loading in the image again. But we've got this nice loop where we're able to go around and around in our carousel. So yeah, again, if you have any questions about the app, feel free to throw them into the comments. If you got any questions about Thunkable or the platform at all, ask them in the comments as well, and we'll try and take some questions before the end. So the last little bit then, let's just share our screen one more time. So where did I get those images? I did a search here in creativecommons.org for San Francisco. We found lots of different pictures. Let's add in a different one here, one that looks kind of visibly different maybe. That's maybe a little bit large. Let's open up this image in the new tab. And what that's going to do then is, that's not quite the kind of thing I want. Let's have a look at this one here maybe. That's a bit big as well. So again, I'm looking at the dimensions here. These are pretty big images, 4,000. So there's kind of a nice one. It'll look a little bit different as well with the resolution. So let's see if we can open this image in a new tab. And see if we have a nice URL to link to. So I want to have one that ends with a .png or .jpeg. Let's go back to Wikipedia, I think was our friend. This one will do the job here. So let's open that image. And there's a link. The image that we want. Definitely should have prepared these in advance. Let's have a look here. We can get this image. There we go. So file JPEG. Here we go. Okay. So this is a totally different color, and that'll look quite different in our app if we were to add it in. So here in our list of images, let's add in an extra item for ourselves. We can copy and paste as well as duplicating, and we can have a fourth image there. So what we want to do is, let's just make sure it's the right one here. Yeah, the harbor. Okay. So what we could do, I suppose, is change that from a 3 to a 4. But a better way is to get the app to do it for you. So in our blocks here, we've got a block here that will measure the length of any list. So we can check the length of the list of images. So that means that we don't have to check this ourselves, or we don't have to worry about updating this at some stage in the future. And instead of hard coding in a number like 4, what we can do is every time we add an extra value, an extra image to this list, this number here will be changed. So at the moment it'll be 4. So when we try to go to picture number 5, it'll actually bring us back to picture number 1. Like that. Okay, so I think that's probably everything for the moment. What we want to do is go back, try this out one more time on our phone, and see now that we've got this kind of dynamic app that we can add as many items as we want to our list and preview them then on our phone. Okay, so let's stop sharing. Let's go back to the webcam. Hopefully, so again, we might need to refresh or reload if there's any issues. That's the second one. And that's the third one. We've seen that already, but hopefully we can load a fourth one. So yeah, there we go. And then here we go. Yeah, so now it's perfect. And so we can keep adding in more and more images to our list and keep scrolling around through them like that. Okay, so that's pretty much us for the very first episode, or the inaugural episode of Thunkable Live on Air. If you have any suggestions for a name for the series, feel free to throw those into the comments, into the chat as well. So again, like I say, the idea or the inspiration for this app really came from the Thunkable community. So head over to community.thunkable.com if you have any apps that you want help with, any app that you're working on, or any little part of your app that you want just kind of assistance or some feedback with. So before I go, actually, one thing that I'm going to put into the comments to share with you is, well, how do you take my app and customize it for yourself? So the last thing we're going to do is one of my favorite features of Thunkable here. Let's share that one more time in here. So I'm going to give you this app. I'm going to let you remix it and add any images that you want, or add any controls that you want here. So by sharing this app like so, you can create your own version of it, your own remix of it. And we've got a link here. So I'm going to go back to the comments. I'm going to add it into the chat. I'm going to copy and paste it. I'm going to put it up in the community as well so that anybody else that wants to can remix this and add to it themselves. So just to recap, we've had a little look at the user interface. We haven't gone into too much depth here, but we can see we've got different components that we can choose from. Every time we add a component, we can customize that component's properties. And some of these components have events that we can change or properties that we can change in the blocks. When you want to program your app, you go into your blocks editor. Some of the blocks are built in, so these ones at the top will be the same for every app. And some of the blocks are going to be different depending on what you put into your app. So we created a component called My Image, we created a button, and we called it Button 1. And all of those components were living on Screen 1. And what we did then was we created a simple toggle, first of all, to go back and forth between two images. And we expanded on that idea then by creating a whole list of images. So if every time you want to add an item to a list, keep an eye out for these little gear icons here. They're called mutators, and they allow you to mutate or to change the shape of your blocks. So you can add in pieces or you can remove pieces. So they're like in front of you, they'll change shape. So we can just plug those in together. If they're not connected properly, you get this lovely visual feedback that they're not connected. So reconnect them there. And we can, create a little simple incrementer here. We've got this event handler here, and we've got this little control flow statement, this little condition here to test whether or not we've run out of images in our list. So that's quite a lot of material, I guess, to cover, or a lot of ground to have covered in 30 minutes. That'll do here for this week. So I'm going to share that link. Again, this will allow you to not just work with my project, but you can create your own link. You can share your project with your friends, your teammates, anybody else that you're working with, and they can develop this app, progress it a little bit, and send it back to you. So it's a cool way of working with other people all around the world. So let's go back here, paste this into the chat really quickly. And again, like I say, I'll paste that into the community as well during the week. So thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us on the inaugural episode of Thunkable Live. Best of luck with all your own apps. Hope you enjoy. I'd really like to see what you come up with remixing and developing this app. And if you have any ideas or questions, you can always get us in the community or on Thunkable X itself. You can always just reach out to us on the little chat icon in the bottom right of your screens. Okay, so thanks very much, everybody. Wherever you are in the world, good night or good morning or good afternoon. Enjoy your weekend and talk to you next week. Slán.